long rifles. We have an equal number of handguns. Arm some of the troops with those knives we see over there. We probably put 40 or 50, but I don't know. I think this looks like one man's personal passion and cash.
How long was this going on? Do we know how long this plot might have been on?
Marty, you want to address that?
It would be our estimation that this was going on for several weeks. We became aware of it this week. So our direct knowledge is only of this week, but from our investigation, we would estimate over the past several weeks that the planning stages began. And this week it moved to a more serious level.
There are multiple copies of these books in here. Was he trying to start a movement?
Again, as Mr. Catterson's indicated, we have not had the pleasure of Mr. Ford sharing what all his plans were. We know he had this literature. What he intended to do with it, I can't tell you at this time.
This is a particularly lethal weapon in that it has a bipod. It's a civilian version, I believe, of the M15. Where's my exit? I think it's an M15, huh? Scoped, and I have reason to believe that the individual in question had this loaded in the vicinity of Mr. Powell's home within the last 3 weeks.
The weapons were found exactly, I mean, the radar was found in the truck, and the weapons were all found where in it?
Weapons were in the house, gun cases, places in the house. The radium isotope was found in a pickup truck. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes. Mr. Catterson, one last question for me. I've interviewed this man, John Ford, in the past, and I know he believes UFOs exist and that the government is behind hiding the so-called truth about UFOs and their existence. Is it possible there's some connection here between UFOs, the government supposedly hiding?
Once again, I haven't talked to the gentleman except I've seen him upstairs. I don't know what's in the inner recesses of his mind. We are the government, if I can use that loosely. I'm certainly not concealing it, but that probably didn't stop this individual, if that's sincere. I don't know. And I think it'd be just speculation to say what was really on his mind. But we certainly have a person who has very strong feelings that are way beyond political dissent and debate. You know, we've come to the place in this country, and we've been hearing about it for years, where the debate has become so acrimonious that certain people in the extreme fringes of our society start to think that they can take the law into their own hands to affect change. And I think that it's something that we have to really consider where we are, how do we conduct our public debate, and what we do as a people. I think it's very important that we have a lot more tolerance for each other's views, and at the same token, keep your eyes open when people start to exhibit this kind of behavior to bring it to the public safety attention, because this is potentially very dangerous. This is lethal. All right, I think we've exhausted at this point. I think I want to thank you for coming and close this down. I certainly thank Mr. Holland and the group from Brookhaven National Laboratories, and I thank you for your time.
We have just heard a live press conference from Suffolk District Attorney James Catterson concerning an alleged plot to assassinate at least 3 Republican leaders in Suffolk County, those leaders being Suffolk Republican Chairman John Powell, also Suffolk County Legislator Fred Toll, and Brookhaven Public Safety Director Anthony Gazzola. From what we know so far, the 2 men are under arrest right now. One of them is 48-year-old John Ford, and the other man's is named Joseph Massacelli of Manorville. We're going to have much more for this story as the afternoon and evening unfold. Once again, I'm Patty Ann Brown. This has been a special report.
This has been a News 12 Long Island special report.
Hello, I'm Lori Laughlin. If you're a young person, then it's time to consider making your mark in the world. And there's no better way in which a high school, college student, or young adult can do this than through the St. Vincent de Paul Society. St. Vincent de Paul needs young people now. It was in
Arrested after seeking the services of someone they thought was a hitman.
We believe Mr. Ford was in the process of seeking individuals who would in fact carry out this plan for him. And that's one of the ways we became aware of the investigation.
court-authorized search warrant was executed at the Bellport address yesterday by the DA's racket squad and Suffolk County Police Department's Emergency Services Unit. They were joined there by a lot of other officials from other places, including the Department of Energy. They were there to determine whether or not radioactive material that was found in the house had escaped in any way and could be harmful to the neighborhood. The reason that the radioactive material was there, it was a thing called radium. They were supposedly using this material to perhaps break into the homes of these public officials and in turn infect their food, sugar, toothpaste, things like this with the radium. Over a long term, this can cause cancer. Exposure to the radium material can cause cancer. So obviously a bizarre plot, a lot more to it. We'll have more coming up tonight at 5. Patty Ann?
In other news, a second suspect is being booked in connection with the West Hampton Beach racial beating. News 12's Doug Geed is standing by at the criminal courthouse in Riverhead with more on this. Doug. James Catterson and Suffolk Republican Chairman John Powell. One of the suspects is 48-year-old John Ford. Police say they found up to 50 guns, other ammunition, and radioactive materials in Ford's house. Ford's neighbor called him a good neighbor with a fascination for UFOs. The other suspect's name has not been released. News 12 will bring you more details on this story as they develop. A second suspect has been booked in connection with the racially charged West Hampton beating of Shane Daniels. 25-year-old Austin Offen of Floral Park was arraigned on assault charges today. Witnesses say they were on a hit list, and the weapon of choice was radioactive chemicals. We have team coverage along with exclusive details. News 12's Brendan Higgins is live in Central Islip, where 2 suspects have been arraigned. Brendan?
Lee, 48-year-old John Ford and 42-year-old Joseph Mazzucchelli have just been arraigned on conspiracy charges and denied bail. Neither of them had an attorney. The judge ordered them to get attorneys or to have the court appoint them attorneys for this bizarre plot to assassinate some of Suffolk's most influential leaders. The successful overnight bust produced the 2 men authorities say are co-conspirators and the arsenal of serious artillery at the core of their plan.
As bizarre as it may seem, individuals were overheard plotting the assassination of local public officials.
D.A. Catterson was on the pair's alleged hit list, but took the threat in stride.
I, having heard some of the communication, don't consider the threat to my person any more than it has been in other areas that, go with the job.
But this threat, by all accounts, was bizarre. Police say the suspects were planning to do away with their victims by planting radioactive material in their family's food.
Among them were putting the radioactive material in toothpaste, in sugar bowls, in other foods within a house that could be consumed by anyone that lived in that house.
Prolonged exposure to the material called radium could also cause cancer. Police also tell us the suspect's motive was to get rid of public officials who might have become too powerful.
He had not only a political agenda, it seemed, but also a personal agenda, as he had been slighted by these individuals in some form or fashion. He did not expressly articulate what those slights were.
I've never had any contact with either of these individuals in any way, shape, or form prior to getting elected to office or since I've been elected to office, which has been 6 months. I've never spoke to them personally, don't know them personally, would have no idea what myself and the other 2 gentlemen would be a target of any possible assassination attempt.
That was Suffolk legislator Fred Tolles, also at the head of this plot, or actually there were going to be victims of this plot if it ever went through. Republican Party Chairman John Powell and Brookhaven Public Safety Director Anthony Gazzola, and authorities say that might not be the end of the list. They're still investigating. Lee?
Well, Brendan, have police spoke at all about confirming or denying if the suspects belong to any type of militia group?
Well, it certainly looked like that. As you looked at the table of evidence that they brought in, there was handbooks from the Freemen, there was a minesweepers in there, there was a whole lot of heavy-duty artillery, but they say that they have nothing that links them to a militia right now. In fact, they say they don't even know if there is a militia on Long Island other than a bag and pipe band. So right now they're saying that they're still investigating that possibility. Lee?
All right, Brendan, thanks very much. Of course, we'll have the latest for you as more things develop.
A disturbing picture of the suspects is now beginning to emerge. We have information you won't see anywhere else. News 12's Shari Einhorn is standing by in Bellport with exclusive details. Shari?
That's right, Matt. Neighbors here in Bellport say they wouldn't actually describe John Ford as a dangerous man, but they do characterize his behavior as strange. He is a very serious gun collector, and he's also avidly interested in UFOs and close encounters with extraterrestrials.
You to get the smoking gun that would prove the existence of extraterrestrial visitation on our world.
For nearly 3 decades, John J. Ford, chairman of the Long Island UFO Network, has been investigating UFO sightings, abductions, and a possible federal government cover-up of these incidents. Preston Nichols is Ford's longtime friend and co-worker.
He's always been a sort of a militaristic fellow, but a nice fellow. You know, he's always been considerate. I couldn't see him wanting to harm anybody.
Nichols says he and Ford have recently been investigating the possibility that last year's massive West Hampton brush fire was caused when a UFO crashed into the Pine Barrens. And that's why he claims the federal government was out to get them last December.
John and I were going out on a field investigation. They loosened all 5 lug nuts on one tire halfway. The idea being we got at the high speed and lose the wheel.
You say they. Who is they?
We don't know for sure. We believe it's the part of the government that covers up UFOs.
Ford is a member of the Conservative Party and actually wanted to use the federal government cover-up as a platform to run this year for the 3rd District State Assembly seat. Until now, the Conservative Party had considered running him. But now, fellow conservative John Bloom claims we honest and true conservatives believe that all government officials should be above reproach. From all the information I see in regard to this incident, John Ford is not, and I repeat, not a conservative. Ford worked as a court officer here at Suffolk County Supreme Court from March of 1982 through July of 1994 when he left on disability. In the early 1990s, News 12 spoke with Ford at a meeting on UFO sightings and abductions.
You're studying us.
Investigators say Joseph Mazzucchelli of Manorville, also a member of the UFO network, was involved in Ford's threat to kill several local politicians. But Preston Nichols insists his friend is being set up. Could John Ford be responsible for any kind of a threat on John Powell or on his family?
Not that I'm aware of. I doubt it because John and I have still been trying to figure out who the H is behind this.
Now, obviously, they're not the only ones trying to figure out who is behind this, if it is indeed a setup like John's Ford friends claim. And also, we should tell you that Mazzucchelli, the second suspect, does have a long criminal record, including at least 50 arrests for burglary, grand larceny, petty larceny, and harassment. That's it for now. We're live in Bellport. Sherry Einhorn, News 12 Long Island. Now let's go back to you in the studio. Lee?
All right, Sherry, thanks very much. Now, just what is radium? How easy is it to get, and what sort of damage can it do? News 12's Christina DeBerrio joins us now with some answers as our team coverage continues. Christina?
Well, Lee, radium is a radioactive hazardous material. There are very strict regulations for getting radium, so it's next to impossible to find. And for years, it was common in the medical field, but it has been out of use now for about 15 years. Experts say you can't taste it or smell it, and they say it would take a very long time to kill someone by exposing them to radium.
I will assure you all that there is no health risk to the people either of Bellport or the surrounding communities. We've ascertained that the lead shields are protecting the material. That's how you would handle it in an appropriate manner.
5 canisters of radioactive radium isotopes were found at John Ford's home. Police and radiation experts from Brookhaven National Lab say the radium is safely concealed in 25-pound lead containers. Authorities do not know how much radium is in the containers, what form it is in, or how Ford got it.
Radium has been used over the years in many applications, including medical applications for treatment of cancer and diagnostic purposes, even in doctor's offices in your local neighborhood, dating back to the 1940s. It's also been used in industrial applications.
If the suspects, Ford and Joseph Mazzucchelli, were successful in exposing John Powell and his family to radium, experts say in the short term, low doses of radium wouldn't do much harm. But in high doses, it would cause nausea, diarrhea, and flu-like symptoms. It would attack the bone marrow, including the white blood cells, and it could damage the intestinal tract. over the long term. Now, radium, you may also remember, was used in the 1930s. It was common on watch dials to make them glow in the dark. Right now, those canisters of radium are at the University Medical Center at Stony Brook, where they will be tested.
Lee? Christina, thank you very much. Matt?
Lead to our other big story tonight. It was arraignment day for the second person charged in the savage Memorial Day weekend beating of a young Riverhead man. As News 12 East End correspondent Doug Geed reports, suspect number 2 joins New York City Detective Constantine Cronus, who remains behind. Have details. Stay with us.
News 12 weather is brought to you by Valentine Heating and Air Conditioning of Port Jefferson, your Bryant Premier dealer. Call 516-473-2500. Call your Long Island Bryant dealer to the rescue for the only ozone-friendly air conditioner available. They're energy efficient and can lower your cooling bills. Also receive up to a $400 rebate from Lilco. Call your Long Island ozone-friendly Bryant Premier dealer at 1-800-HOT-SAND.
Hey Jess, what's up? Everything's great here at Post.
Welcome to Post Wire.
Glasses are actually